here in Tangi. We're here to engage media houses on the recent activities of the department when it comes to migration interceptions from the month of October to November 3rd. This briefing, it's a consolidation of the operations that we have had over the past month, which also includes the investigations, smuggling cases, and also few engagements where we had to repatriate some migrants to various countries. Now, the operations were conducted by the GID's Migration Management Unit through its efforts with the Border Patrol Unit, and then partners that we've also been working with over the course of this year. Operations come in different folds, in different locations, and also with different varieties. In this briefing, I will briefly give you an insight of each of these particular cases and then give you an overall number of how much we're able to intercept from the course of January down to November. Our first migration case that we had intercepted occurred in Bara on the 2nd of October 2025. The North Bank Border Patrol Unit intercepted 39 would-be migrants, which includes 34 Gambians and 5 Senegalese, including 4 female and 1 pregnant woman. The migrants that were intercepted were preparing to move to Mboletba to be transported to Bara, and later they came back to Tangi. This migration route was disrupted by the Border Patrol Unit of North Bank region, and then the migrants were transported back to Tangi here at the base. We had, in our findings, we've also been able to find out that the witnesses were not opportune to be seen by most of these migrants because payments were mostly sent by their family members abroad, and this also includes a woman who was 8 months pregnant with 2 weeks pregnancy. So we also had a similar case in Bara, which occurred on the 6th of October 2025 at the Bara Ferry Terminal. In this case, we had 6 migrants that were intercepted, and this included 5 Senegalese and 1 Gambian. They've been moving to the Gambia in an effort to also join a migration route that was being organized. The migrants had confessed that they were instructed to meet a contact in the Gambia, where they will be given their boarding to a particular boat for movements. The GID had also had a vehicle interception done by the Tangi, Gunjur, and Katong immigration stations, their border patrol units, and this vehicle was engaged in smuggling fuel that is to be used for migration routes. Now, in a vehicle number plate BJL 8045X with fuel, we had items of 52 gallons of 30 liters fuel that was captured there. We also had the 40 of 20 liters gallon that was also captured, and the 26 of 60 liter gallon. And then we also have 200 liter barrels that were also intercepted by the officers. We've also been informed that the suspect in this case, which is Wuye Sane and Sheikh Aydara, were paid an amount of 40,000 onwards by the migrants that were involved in this particular case. Now, this was a disruption case as the migrants were not met up with a vehicle, but they contained items that are being used for this particular routine that we had to intercept along the way. We also had in our findings on the 7th of October 2025 that 34 migrants were also intercepted by the PIU and the police general duty officers. And these migrants were later handed over to the GID for necessary investigation and processing. Now, these migrants were recruited by a man called by Paul, Musa, and also Bubakar, suspected organizers. And the boat departed from Chare in Senegal and then came into the Gambia for a transit purpose. The Navy had also intervened, and then after this we realized that 300 migrants were supposed to be in this particular boat to move into the Gambia and then transit to the Canary Islands. Further interceptions also occurred on the 10th of October 2025 in Joswang, where we had 5 migrants. You might be seeing the numbers in bits and pieces because we are now more focused on prevention than stopping them at the latter part. So our engagement focus is more on trying to disrupt their activities as they're trying to gather into one place, and that is why the numbers will come in bits and pieces. Unlike before, where we would have them all at a particular place and we had to intercept them. So now we want to focus more on preventive mechanisms to avoid them being together and expose us to other activities within the Gambia. So on October 10th, migrants were returning home after a failed attempt, but then no payments were made, and then they were intercepted by the immigration officers in Joswang as well. We had another case on the 13th of October 2025 in Mahmuda, where 7 migrants plus 1 Pakistani national were also intercepted. These migrants were recruited by a man called Matar, and each of them paid about 55,000 CFA. The Pakistani national was also confirmed to be a legitimate businessman in the Gambia, but then also wanted to use the irregular migration route as a mechanism to travel out of the country. In similar cases, we had an interception in Tangier on the 19th of October 2025. In this case, migrants were recruited in Senegal and payments were made via Wave to a man called Bamba, who is an agent currently staying in Spain, not in the Gambia here. Now, the organizers Bamba and Baifal were revealed by the migrants during our investigations, and then they were all at large as we speak, as Bamba currently stays in Spain, not within the Gambia. Following that case, we also had a different case that took place in Batokunku, where we had 25 migrants that were intercepted. Now, this occurred on the 20th of October 2025. The suspects in this case included Wue Sane, who was involved, and then engines of 60 horsepower and 40 horsepower were also intercepted in this particular case, and the fuels were seized currently with us at the center here in Tangier. In a similar case, the same Batokunku, we had a different case on the same very day, 20th of October 2025. And in this case, Wue was arrested, items were seized, including the engine, the pumping machine, the fuel, the motorbikes were all intercepted during the course of this particular engagement. And after the investigation, they've been recommended for prosecution efforts to be able to deter such practices within the Gambia. Now, on the 22nd of October 2025, we have a case that was a bit different. These are not migrants that were intercepted, but then they are returnees from Nigeria. We had initially sent a release on this part, where we had our officers travel all the way to Mauritania in partnership with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the SIS were also involved. They had to travel all the way to Mauritania and bring about 40 migrants that were stranded in Mauritania. Accounts from these migrants had also revealed that they had undergone serious human rights violations and also suppressions by the authorities in Mauritania. On a good note, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, through its embassy in Mauritania, was able to engage swiftly and arrange for them to be returned back to the Gambia, which our officers, Commandant Sedikan to here, together with officers from Foreign Affairs, were able to travel down to Mauritania in the Rosa border and transport those migrants back to the country. In that case, we realized that the boat that transported them to Mauritania left the Gambia with an amount of 190 to 200 migrants. But then at our level, we were only able to return 40 migrants in this case, as the other ones left before the team was able to reach Mauritania. On a separate interception case where we had 47 Guineans at Madiana Salaji, it occurred on the 22nd of October 2025. The suspect identified in this case included Mamadou Seka, who was the one harboring the migrants in a compound. We also had a Senegalese-based organizer, Pape Aliou Mustafa, and also Fode, who are also suspected as organizers of this particular case, and this case took place in Salaji, where they've been harbored. Separately, we also had another case in Bara, which occurred on the 26th of October 2025, where 28 migrants were also intercepted by the NBR Border Patrol Unit. Now, these individuals were intercepted during the course of our routine checks, where we have our officers going around to check coastal belts and areas where we may have susceptible people to be engaged into migration route. They were suspected to have departed from a village called Jinak in the North Bank region, and the migrants were taken to Tangier for further investigations. On the 25th of October 2025, we had also 34 migrants plus a boat and an engine intercepted at a village called Kubune on the 25th October 2025. Now, the boat, engine, and the 200 gallons of fuel were all recovered, and the agent who was found in this particular case is Mr. Cherno Usman Sow, who is currently at large as we report this particular case. A similar case occurred in Bara, where we had 30 migrants who were intercepted on the 25th of October 2025, same day with that of Kubune. In this case, again, we had two organizers, Modunjai and also Ismaila, were found to be in this case. And they have collected payments from migrants in various ways. Some of them paid through CFA, others paid in Gambian dollars. Reason being why we have difference in currencies, because most migrants come in different countries. Some of them are from Senegal, others will be from the Gambia, some are from Guinea. And these countries have different currency notes. So as a result, migrants would pay in different notes based on the countries where they reside. And then Bara also had a different case the following day on the 26th of October 2025, where we had 29 migrants that were intercepted. And the suspected agents in this particular case includes Mr. Yoro, Abdullah, and also Musa. In this interception, food items were also recovered, and then there had been some claims that have been alleged by the the migrants that were some officers that were involved in this particular case. We would want to disclose which particular unit was this, but then there had been allegations made that they had conspired with few people that engage in this particular act. So as we speak, we're also making efforts to engage with those people and see how we can mitigate some of those practices. We also had another smuggling case where we have arrested a man called Adam Khan on the 1st of November 2025. Now, Adam Khan, together with Ali Job, were suspected to have prepared for a boat departure in a village called Sami. Payments were also made in CFA and Gambian dollars. And this case, they were supposed to have about 240 migrants to be departed from the Gambia to the Canary Islands in this particular case. Moving forward, we have another major interception that took place on the 2nd of November 2025, where we have 82 migrants in Batakunku again. And the suspects in this case included a man called Abdi Juft and also Mr. Ibrahim Manjai. This particular case came in various formats because we have been receiving many migrants over the past months. But then with this particular case, we have seen them prepared with their radio sets to be able to facilitate communications while they are moving. And also, the man was also alleged to have been having a particular, he was armed at some point, and we have him currently in custody here. So as we speak, we have 3 suspected organizers of irregular migration route that are currently in custody in Tangier here, and their cases will be taken for prosecution. The man that was claimed to have been armed will be handed over to the Gambia Police Force, as it is their mandate to decide whether the arm being used was genuine or not, and what exactly could have been charges of criminal offense made by those particular individuals. At the level of GID, we've already finished our investigations to confirm how they were able to recruit the migrants and also harbor them in a particular place, pace. And at this point, we'll hand over the case to the Gambia Police Force for necessary actions. And then, looking at all these particular numbers we've discussed, they all occurred within the course of October, coming down to the 2nd of November 2025. Now, by aggregation, I will give you a cumulative number of what we're able to intercept over the course of this past month. Now, from January coming down to November 2nd, when we put all our interceptions together, we were able to have an interception of 535 Gambians within these interceptions. 921 Senegalese were found within these interceptions. 485 of them were also found to be Guineans, and we have 100 of them that fall under other nationalities within the Gambia. Among them also we had 21 pregnant women that were also taking this migration route to travel from the Gambia into the Canary Islands. We've also had, in different cases, close to 70 minors that are children below the age of 18 that were also involved in most of these migration cases. Now, overall, if we look at the gender aggregation, we realize that out of the number that we have intercepted, which included 2,041 migrants over the course of this year from January down to November today, GID was able to intercept 2,041 migrants that were taking the migration route within the country. Some of them used the country as a transit point, others who are recruited within the Gambia here to also undertake this particular journey. And out of this number, 1,693 are male, 348 of them are female, 77 of them are minors, and 21 of them are pregnant women found in this particular case. Now, as we continue our efforts, we are now in the month of November going down to December, and we've also realized that it is a peak period where most migrants are also trying to leverage upon to travel out of this country. The GID, as we speak, is focused more on disrupting these movements than waiting until they board the vehicles to travel out of the country. And as a result, most of our engagements over the past months are fueled at the very beginning when they try to recruit them together, or they have been harbored in a particular compound, or they're trying to move from one place to a different place to be able to meet up with the organizers. We want to again recommit ourselves to engaging with the communities, receiving intelligence from most of these people, as most of our efforts are intelligence based. We are not able to be in every corner, every nook and cranny of this country. So it is only people that can also give us information that we can work upon to make these interceptions. If you have also been following the media, there have been reports of many missing boats within the seas. And most of these are claimed to have traveled out of the country, going down to Senegal and into Mauritania. While we are not able to verify their departure points at this point, we also want to see it as an alarm that with all these things we have achieved, there are still boats moving. And most of these movements are known by Gambian citizens in communities, in compounds, and coastal belt. It becomes their duty to be able to communicate with the GID staff and engage us in the earliest possible time so we can also intercept most of these cases. We also want to appreciate the work of the Border Patrol Unit and the Migration Management Unit of GID over the course of this month. When we are sleeping at our comfort zones, even at night, they're always available, making sure that migration routes are foiled at the very beginning. We also want to express our gratitude to the GID Command, who have also been there to boost up the morale of the staff and also promote their engagement into this irregular migration route. The GID is not against migration, as it is a right upon every citizen, upon every person within a country. But we stand firm, sternly, to fight against irregular migration route because it compromises our border engagement efforts. It is against our Immigration Act for you to travel without regularized entry points of this particular country. And as a result, we want to advocate for safe, orderly, and regular migration route. So if there are claims that we are more focused on intercepting them, we want to save lives and also protect the Gambia's integrity and border management efforts. Thus, we call upon everybody to support the GID in its effort towards this particular activity. We would allow the Commissioner of the Migration Management to also share a few highlights before we will take questions and answers from the media personnel as well.
From the beginning of the year up to today's very date, as he rightly said, we seek the cooperation of the communities, all the relevant stakeholders, and other security agencies that we work with in terms of migration management and border governance. And then I wouldn't have much to say. Already Seaman have exhausted everything, but I will also want to throw a bit on the area of gender in migration. We have seen that the number of women that are taking this route, dangerous route, is in increase. And then looking at the vulnerability of women and children, we seek the support of the community in managing migration and border governance in the Gambia. On that note, I wouldn't have much to say, but I would thank the media here that are with us, that help us to spread this message across, which is also very important because for you to be able to protect or prevent a particular crime, you must be aware of maybe the risks and the impact that is attached to it. And we have seen the havoc, the disaster, the danger that irregular migration has posed to the socio-economic development of this country, and taking the cream of our society, which are the youths. Then it used to be youths of male category, but now we have seen our female colleagues that are into this, and even pregnant women that are more vulnerable even at home, talk less of at the sea. So on that note, we call on all the stakeholders, and then we will want to also reaffirm the general public and then the public that GID reaffirms its commitment to interagency cooperation, coordination, and collaboration for effective and efficient border governance and migration management in the Gambia. On that note, I thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. So before we will open up the platform for questions and answers, today we will also open the avenue for you to engage with other relevant immigration matters you want us to also clarify in this particular case. I just wanted to also emphasize that we work together with partners, and then we have to acknowledge the efforts of the Gambia Red Cross Society, who are always on the ground when we have interceptions to also support the migrants with psychological support and then other related matters. We would also want to acknowledge the efforts of other sister services that have also been very much supportive. Despite few red tapes we sometimes face in our engagements, they have always been there to support. And we would also want to call them to realize that border management has to be an integrated mechanism where the GID would have to work with all other sectors to be able to fully implement this mandate. While migration becomes our mandate at the Immigration Department, we also have to work in tandem with most of them to engage in most practices. Thus, we call them to continue their engagements with the GID and supporting this particular strive to maintain national security and safeguard lives and properties. If you have no other issues to discuss with you, we will open up the platform for you to ask questions and concerns before we move to other important matters.
I don't know whether you were reading my mind regarding the collaboration with other sister security agencies to come in. So this is quite a staggering number that you mentioned here regarding the migration journey by our fellow youths.
Sure.
From January to now, and from January to 2020, January 2024 to January 2020, December 2025.
Yes.
If you are to do an analysis on this, do you think this is on the rise or it is on the decrease? And also, the other question that I have is, recently we have departures from various points. Do you people have, officers or members around that end that are monitoring these departure points to actually, inform you people? Because the departure recently is quite, staggering compared to the previous. Because right now, many migrants are saying that now is the time to move on because we are heading to the, cold season around that end. So, do you people have officers there? If no, what plans are you having to ensure that you cope with the situation there?
All right, thank you very much. I think I would first attempt your question before we take a second question. Now, I will start with your question as to the comparative analysis between last year and this year. Now, last year in our annual report, we've intercepted about 1,646 migrants throughout the course of the year. And right now, this year, we're just in November, and we've intercepted about 2,041 migrants. That alone indicates to you that the numbers this year that we have intercepted is staggering compared to that of last year. But I also want to specify that these are the ones we have intercepted, not those who have been able to also leave the borders of this particular country. So we cannot quantify how many people have left the country, but we can tell you the number of people we have intercepted during the course of this year. We have been seeing reports as to most boats also reaching the Canary Islands, and then some will claim that they left the Gambia here. So at our level, we cannot tell you how many have left, but we can tell you how many we have intercepted. On a different part, you're asking, we've seen them coming from different areas, from the North Bank region, West Coast, KM, all other areas. What are we doing to also manage these areas? I will first start by saying that the GID has done what we call as coastal belt mapping, where we look at most potential hotspots for irregular migration route. And then that is why we're able to always have these interceptions. However, there had been increase in trends. As you can see, before we hardly see people from Kubune coming out. But Kubune now becomes a new trend. What they are doing now is, instead of using the main coastal belt to travel, they would use bolongs that are in the interior of this particular country to harbor migrants, like we see in the case of Kubune. Now, the main boat will not anchor in that bolong. The main boat anchors somewhere within the sea, and they will use taxi boats to transport the migrants in bits and pieces to the main boat at the river. So this becomes a new trend, and that is why you can see cases like Jina coming in. You can see the case of Kubune also coming. These are not right at the coastal belt. They are belongs within the country. And the case that we have, it usually falls within North Bank and also sometime within West Coast region. And we also want to call the people of North Bank, because most boats living are within those areas as well. And their support also is crucial for us to be able to safeguard these activities. Whether we have officers there or not, I would say we have a very effective border patrol unit in North Bank region. Most of our cases captured here came through North Bank. We also have a very strong one here in Tangi, Gunjur, and also Katong, together with the ones we have in Banjul. So officers are doing their utmost best to at least mitigate this practice. However, there are persistent challenges that also affect these activities. One of them includes the case of mobility. That sometimes if you have operators at night in two different places, we have only a few vehicles to be able to fly the officers. So this will be a constraint. How can they reach all these different areas? We also have sometimes challenges when it comes to legalities that can also safeguard the interests of these particular officers in most cases. For instance, if you are to operate at night, let's say 2 a.m. at night, GID staffs are not armed, and then we are going to intercept about 200 migrants in those areas, with those who might be there potentially armed. So it becomes a risk for most of this stuff. So as a result, we also have to look at other mechanisms to also be able to safeguard it. As we speak, we have about 100 GID staff that have already been selected to go through what we call border patrol unit trainings at the Gambia Armed Forces. Now, the purpose of this is to streamline our development at the GIDs when it comes to defense and other mechanisms. And then when this is deployed, it's going to effectively affect also how we operate. However, their deployment can only be done if the GID bill is also implemented, because it is the border patrol unit that we have in that bill. And it provides for them to be able to have at least sidearms where they can safeguard their safety during the course of their operations. So as we wait for the bill to be enacted, we also have our people currently going through certain engagement to be trained by the Gambia Armed Forces to to be able to streamline our efforts to curb irregular migration activities.
Okay, just a follow-up. Sorry, just a follow-up to that.
Yes.
We've all seen a gun here, and then you've talked about the GID officers that they are not armed. You don't say anything about the gun, so we want you to explain to us the gun, and also regarding the issue of GID officers being not armed. Currently, are you working with the other security agencies that are armed when your patrol team is going to check the border sites and the beach to intercept these migrants?
Yes, thank you very much. So I do not want to talk about the gun specification or the suspected gun specification because it is not our mandate to determine what sort of gun it is, whether it's genuine or ingenuine. In as much as we are to curb irregular, we have to also respect other mandates of other security services. So it is the work of the Gambia Police Force to be able to do their forensic analysis to understand whether it's a gun or not, or what exactly it can pose. But then to us, it also posed a threat to our officers because it was held by an organizer who is currently at custody. So as a result, our officers could have been endangered by this particular suspected gun that is currently here. So we are still concerned, and that is why we're trying to deploy them to be trained also onto arm and ammunition to be able to safeguard their safety. But like I said, it has to be supported by the bill of the GID in this case. So we're just trying to make it operational before we're able to have the bill implemented. And then on a different note, you asked about, if I'm not, what was the second part of your follow-up?
Like when your patrol team is going to the beach side for interception.
Okay, yes. So for the joint patrol, sometimes these cases are done at sea, and we intercept them together with the Gambian Navy. Or sometimes navies will want to intercept and hand over, even though we sometimes have challenges with them when it comes to these activities. But then, in some occasions, we have it together with the Navy. In other occasions too, like you can see a case where the police were not intercept and give it to us. So at our level, when we go on patrol, we hardly go with most of them because each of us have a different mandate, and they may have their patrol at night on other engagements. So we are sometimes not with weapons when we go into these operations, and it still poses a threat to most of our staff when they engage. But then it is our job to mitigate irregular migration. So we have to be firm and control the borders as much as possible. I will take that up for you, Ali.
Yes. My question is basically on the officers that are alleged to be involved in the smuggling of some of these migrants. I just wanted to know what step is the department taking in trying to prosecute, to making sure there is accountability and transparency, given the fact that there is a rise in the number of migrants. And it could also be that there are so many potential officers involved in the smuggling of some of these migrants.
Yes, thank you very much, Aliu. To start up, I would say we had not received any report of a GID staff involved in organizing irregular migration groups. I have seen a report on the media that claims that officers of a different sector have been involved that we cannot quantify and substantiate. But in our reports and what we have investigated within the migrants have not shown us any GID staff engaged in this irregular migration group. If there are claims of others being involved, we would advise that they at least maintain decorum and avoid being involved in such cases because it compromises our efforts at the level of the Gambia Immigration Department. What do we do to maintain accountability? The GID had undergone a series of transformations. If you engage with our GID staff, you will know that the GID then and now there are big gaps because our staffs are trained to be professional in their conduct with the public servants, with the public. As we speak, we have a training ongoing to focus on human rights and also national protection activities. So we are still very much committed in trying to lead the reform strategies of our department and make sure our staff are engaged with accountability and also transparency. So I do not have any records of a GID staff involved in some of these organizations like this. The GID bill, at this point, we are told has gone a bit far because in our last meeting I heard that it has passed through cabinet review. They had made some comments that should be adjusted before it goes to the parliament. But then, in as much as we know it is making progress, we also feel like the process could have been expedited, knowing that the number is increasing and then more Gambians are posed with threats when it comes to this activity. So the bill still becomes a challenge. With all our efforts, with all our officers and their engagements, in as much as migrants who is not criminalized, organizers will still engage in having this being done within the country. If you have observed of recent, Gambians have been prosecuted by the Senegal authorities because of migration groups. And that is because Senegal has very strong laws that criminalizes regular migration activities. Unlike us where we have seen Senegalese as the staggering number coming to the country using us as a transit point to travel out of this country. So while we want to intercept them, if the law is not there, it's going to impede the efforts we're making. And as much as we're able to intercept 2,000 people, how many people have left? Why is the greatest number of these people coming from Senegal and Guinea? Because we don't have the laws. So it is now the interest of the country for them to also realize that if these laws are not in place, the jihadist activities will all go in futility because it will not going to support or mitigate these particular practices. So I would say that the law is always a concern to us. And we have been calling upon authorities to also safeguard and also expedite it. Just yesterday it was discussed in a meeting that was conducted. So now it becomes the cabinet's work. It also becomes the parliament's effort to also push for it to be taken to the parliament and they can review and do the needful before it affects our engagements. So many lives have been lost over the past months and we can say it's because the laws are not there. And as much as we want to safeguard lives, the country has to also start by having legislation to support these activities to be able to mitigate most of these practices. So it becomes a concern, and we do hope that those hearing us and they have a part towards the bill will also make efforts to at least support the GID in its drive to cooperate with migration activities. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Mariam Jan from Nyaku, Gambia. I will just start off from where my colleague landed. Yeah. Based on the statistic on the ground, it seems like the numbers are always arising. Yeah. But then, how best are you partnering with your partnering institution in order not to concentrate on intercepting them from going to the back ways? But then, are there any ways that you are doing with your colleagues internationally in order to see what best way can be do through dialogue and some other important, relevant things rather than intercepting?
Thank you so much. I think I'll allow Ma to take you through when it comes to our integration mechanism, where we engage with Senegal authorities in order to be able to mitigate these activities. Ma, you're at the helm of this board and committees. You can provide that.
Thank you very much. Going to your question, of course, we are doing a lot of stakeholder collaboration and then regional and international cooperation when it comes to smuggling of migrants and even trafficking in person. And in this year, at the beginning of the year, you've seen that the government have made efforts through the government of Spain in trying to promote safe, regular and orderly migration by coming up with a circular migration policy that will help our Gambian migrants move to Spain regularly and then coming back. All these are efforts, government efforts and department efforts towards preventing loss of lives and also promoting orderly and dignified migration. And then also when it comes to regional corporations, we are cooperating with like Senegal, Mauritania, as far as Morocco, in trying to consolidate efforts to see that migrants are protected and they have a dignified way of moving into other countries of their migratory interest.
I also want to emphasize that most of these organizers are Senegalese. I want to bring in the context of the ECOWAS Free Movement Protocol within the West African bloc as well, that it has also contributed towards many West African countries coming to the country. Now, if you may not be aware, that there is what we call as the NBIC, the ECOWAS Biometric Identity Cards, which has been implemented by most ECOWAS member states. The Gambia, as we speak, is among the leading countries that leads this biometric identification system. And recently, in fact, our director had traveled to Cotonou at the head of Immigration Forum, where they discussed some of these issues. Now, I also want to emphasize that the GID is also at the apex of revenue collection. As I speak right now, just after the third quarter, the GID has stand at a staggering number of more than $500 million have been collected through our operations. So if we are to talk about our people supporting our operation, we also have to indicate that we have also been at the forefront of revenue collection. Last year, at the end of the year, we had about $420 million were collected. This year, just after the third quarter, we have about $520 million collected. And we have 2 more months to go. That means we'll at least be going close towards $600 million. So I think it's good for our people to also know that we are not just controlling borders, but also trying to create revenue where for the country can also thrive on. And this could be a factor that authorities have to also look upon. If I'm able to bring in money for you, safeguard the border for you, provide ID cards for you, as you have seen our staff going all the way to Guinea-Bissau, going towards Mauritania, going towards Togo and Gabon to also issue identity cards. This is all done in a spirit to safeguard the rights of Gambian citizens, in as much as they stay outside this country. So these efforts are being made to support Gambians and also protect them. So it is also key for government to also look back and say, well, you have been doing a lot, let's give you a tap on your back, try to expedite your bill, and then of course you'll be able to do your work more effectively and efficiently as well. So if you have any other concerns we would want to clarify, if not, we would have to